Incredible discovery, a black boy's touching act to help a lost girl reveals an unexpected truth. Jamal's heart raced as he spotted the girl standing alone, her wide blue eyes scanning the street as if searching for an escape. He had never seen anyone like her in his tough Atlanta neighborhood. She looked lost, terrified, even. It reminded him of the times his grandma would tell him that showing kindness is a form of strength. But in a world where every choice could lead to trouble, was stepping out of his comfort zone even worth the risk? He approached slowly, feeling the weight of his peers' gaze, their unspoken judgments weighing on him like heavy chains. "Hey," he said, trying to soften the fear that tightened around them both. "You lost? You need help?" The girl blinked and nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't find my way home." With that simple plea, Jamal felt an instinctive pull to guide her. As he walked alongside Chloe, the gap between their worlds began to shrink. Her story poured out like water from a broken dam, how she just moved here with her mother after her parents' divorce, how everything felt foreign and isolating. He shared dreams of being an artist and how he loved drawing, how he hoped to one day leave this neighborhood behind to make something of himself, but beneath that connection lurked a heavy storm. Even as Chloe's story drew him in, Jamal felt the thorny judgment of his friends prickling at his back. Why was he talking to her? Couldn't he see the way they looked at him, the stares that tried to suffocate their bond? The fear of being outcast gnawed at him. What would happen when they inevitably returned to school? Would they take a closer look at his friendship with Chloe, pulling apart the threads until everything unraveled? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but as the days passed, their collaboration on the school project, a combined effort to portray their neighborhood's rich history, brought some light. Yet, the shadows of Jamal's self-doubt loomed larger with every judgmental glance. Would his peers see him as less than worthy? Inevitably, as they dove deeper into their research, they stumbled onto a hidden, unsettling truth, historical injustice tied to both of their families. It echoed like an old wound never healed, the past entwined with the present, complex and filled with emotions that spiraled into resentment. When the school's administration dismissed their findings outright, dismissing the very ideas that had grown between them, Jamal's instincts flared. Didn't they see how significant this truth was? But the secret tangling inside him screamed at his core, what if he stood up and failed? What if no one cared? The mounting pressure made each quiet moment feel like an eternity. There was no going back now. He had stepped into a role he didn't know if he was prepared to play. The very act of collaboration morphed into a dangerous game of stakes, where everything he held dear was on the line. As the town hall meeting loomed closer, with the weight of their unfinished work hanging uncomfortably in the air, Jamal found himself ensnared in a web of uncertainty and trepidation. Would he find the strength to confront his fears and ignite the courage necessary to demand acknowledgement for their truth, or would he simply fade away into doubt, leaving the chance for change behind? The battle for voices to be heard had only just begun, and doubt's heavy pulse thumped in his ears like a relentless drum, screaming for resolution. What if failure meant losing everything? The sun cast long shadows as the day finally arrived for the town hall meeting. Jamal stood before the mirror, adjusting his hoodie and trying to steady the quickening pulse in his chest. Each breath felt weighted with responsibility and second-guessing. His mind conjured images of Chloe, her eyes reflecting a mix of hope and uncertainty. She believed in their mission, and they shared an unspoken agreement. This was about more than just a school project. It was a chance to confront the injustices they had unearthed, but Jamal couldn't shake the worry that clawed at his insides. What if no one believed them? What if they were dismissed yet again, their voices drowned out by an unyielding tide of silence? The crowd would be filled with familiar faces, and he could only imagine the judgment from his peers. A part of him still feared their disdain and their tendency to categorize him. Failure felt so tangible, almost like a physical entity poised to drag him back to a life where dreams were suffocated by the weight of expectations. As he walked to the meeting, he felt his mind racing, doubts intertwining with fleeting images of success. Visualizing the room that awaited him, he leaned into the thought that presenting their findings could spark dialogue, could break the shackles of ignorance. That flicker of hope pushed him forward, guiding him through the noise around him. Finally, he entered the town hall, the scent of polished wood and faintly burnt coffee filling the air. The bustling sound of chatter surrounded him, and he spotted Chloe seated near the front, waving at him excitedly. Her beaming smile ignited a faint ember of courage within him, giving him the strength to navigate through anxious thoughts. He approached her, and together they shared a moment, silently reaffirming their resolve. But the atmosphere shifted abruptly when the meeting began. The mayor initiated the discussion, and Jamal felt the palpable anticipation in the room as the topic of community projects was broached. It was now or never. The way his heart raced aligned with a newfound determination coursing through him, fighting against the shadows of doubt. As the agenda shifted to their segment, Jamal felt like the ground beneath him shifted. A churning in his stomach mirrored the uncertainty in the air. Chloe nudged him lightly, encouraging him to take the lead. Every eye in the room was now upon them, an audience ready to hear their truth. He felt the weight of their expectations but also the possibility of change. Good evening, he stammered, his voice stronger than he anticipated. We're here to present, our project about a history that ties our families to the fabric of this community, an unsettling truth that many have overlooked. He continued, each word fueling his passion, his convictions spilling out slowly at first, then more confidently. As he spoke, flashes of their research flickered in his mind, reminding him of the weight of their findings. But just as he began gaining momentum, a voice interrupted. "Isn't this just a bunch of kids trying to stir up trouble?" A local businessman sneered, drawing chuckles from a few audience members. Jamal felt the blood rush to his face as laughter echoed, and for a brief moment, the familiar embrace of doubt wrapped around him. Yet, in that moment of vulnerability, Jamal saw Chloe's determined nod, saw the unwavering belief in her eyes. It sparked an unexpected resolve. "No, this matters. We matter," he blurted out, the words escaping as a challenge, a plea, and a conviction all at once. He felt a stirring in the room, shifts of curiosity rather than disdain. That small flicker of uncertainty started to ignite into a flame of rebellion within him, a commitment to stand firm amidst opposition. But the meeting wasn't over, and the anticipation hung heavily as Jamal awaited their next step in revealing the truth. There were still obstacles to confront, and looming doubts about what could follow gnawed at him. If this meeting was only the beginning of their fight, what other truths awaited them? How far was he willing to go to ensure that their voices were heard, and would it come at a cost he wasn't prepared to pay? Jamal took a deep breath, feeling the air grow thick with the weight of scrutiny. He could sense the shifting dynamics in the room, some eyes sparkled with intrigue while others burned with skepticism. He grasped the edge of the podium, grounding himself in its steady, unyielding presence. What came next demanded courage, not just for himself but also for the truth he and Chloe had fought so hard to unearth. "People here are quick to cast us aside," he continued, pushing against the instinct to retreat. "But these aren't just stories from the pages of history. These are the stories of our families. They've faced injustices that loom over us still today. We believe it's time we face that discomfort together." Murmurs rose from the audience, a mix of agreement and dissent. He could gauge the skepticism in the air, but tempered by curiosity, those murmurs became a beacon he chose to follow. When someone in the back called out, demanding facts over sentiments, his heart quickened. He had rehearsed answers, but this was it, they needed to engage. "And you're right," Jamal proclaimed, his voice rising, fortified by his sudden realization this was exactly what he wanted. "Knowledge isn't enough if it remains unchallenged. Our research finds the threads connecting us to this community's darker past, and I invite you to look at your own connections too." The laughter from earlier had faded, leaving the seemingly mundane hall charged with the potential of unified understanding. Jamal pushed on, detailing specific historical instances, weaving in personal anecdotes that connected his family's legacy to the why of it all. This wasn't just about facts anymore, it was about lives lived and lost, victories and failures etched into the foundation of their town. I want to ask you, what does it cost us to confront history? He paused, sweeping his gaze across the room. What benefit is it to us to ignore those whose lives shaped our own? If we want a future we can be proud of, then we can't silence those stories. As he spoke, it occurred to him that this moment was more than a presentation, it was an act of defiance. Each word dispelled his lingering doubts. He could feel Chloe's energy behind him, urging him on, building a barrier against the negativity. Their collective voices suddenly seemed like a force amplifying from within. A hand shot up from the crowd, a woman in her late 40s with eyes narrowed in skepticism. But is this not just swinging the pendulum the other way? Are we to blame people today for what happened years ago? The question struck like a cold wind. Jamal took a breath, gathering his thoughts against the sudden chill of doubt creeping back in. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. If we recognize the mistakes of the past, we can choose to forge a new path forward. One that acknowledges the struggle, rather than burying it. The longer he spoke, the more he noticed the small shifts in expressions around him. Some leaned forward, others nodded slowly. Perhaps there was the chance of dialogue in all this noise. Jamal realized he wasn't only defending their project, he was inviting people to share in the vulnerability of their collective history. As the meeting drew to a close, Jamal felt an unexpected surge of exhilaration. Uncertainty mixed with an exhilarating sense of accomplishment. They weren't at the finish line, but this was a pivotal moment that invoked a deeper commitment to their cause. Yet, lurking underneath was a nagging question: would this newfound momentum carry beyond tonight? The mayor concluded the meeting, and Jamal stepped away from the podium, feeling a renewed fire within him. He caught Chloe's eye and smiled, but just as he felt the spark of victory, a familiar voice cut through the crowd, taunting and relentless. Enjoy your moment, but don't forget who actually holds the power here. That voice belonged to Marcus, the businessman who had mocked them earlier. Jamal's stomach dropped again, realizing this confrontation was far from over. What truly lay ahead as they navigated this confrontation? The next step was demanding, a confrontation he wasn't entirely prepared for but knew he had to face. The journey had taken an unexpected turn, and Jamal had to decide quickly how to redefine who he would become amid the storm. He needed to rally the courage and skills to counter the challenges Marcus posed. He felt the pressure, the urgency rising, and the moment settled uncomfortably at the forefront of his thoughts. What would he confront next? Jamal's heartbeat intensified as he faced Marcus, whose presence seemed to suck the air out of the room. The crowd around them shifted, eyes darting between the two men, eager for a confrontation. What does he want now? Jamal thought, his stomach a heavy knot of anxiety and anticipation. Ignoring the mounting pressure, Jamal pushed himself to dig deeper into his resolve. He had come too far to let Marcus's taunts derail his progress. Instead of flinching, he straightened his posture, summoning strength from within. Marcus, he began, his voice steady, this isn't about power dynamics or who holds authority. This is about uncovering truths that can no longer be ignored. Truths? Marcus sneered, his tone dripping with disdain. You think this little fairy tale will change anything? You and your stories can't rewrite the rules of the game. People want results, not rhetoric. Jamal felt the anger simmering just beneath the surface of his composed facade. He knew Marcus was a formidable rival, seasoned in the art of manipulation and persuasion. But what Jamal had learned through his journey resonated deeper than Marcus's shallow attempts to sway opinion. This isn't just rhetoric. If we don't learn from the past, we doom ourselves to repeat it. I'm asking for accountability from all of us, yours included. The tension in the room swelled, electric and palpable. Jamal had to seize this moment. He couldn't afford to retreat into fear or self-doubt. If he was going to push forward, he needed not just conviction but also a strategy. How could he turn Marcus's power against him? "Let me ask you something, Marcus," Jamal continued, eyes narrowed but filled with determination. "What legacy do you want to leave behind? One that silences the past, or one that embraces it as the foundation for a better future?" Those words hung in the air, and Jamal felt a flicker of hope. Was he successfully drawing out a sliver of self-reflection from his opponent? Marcus bristled but maintained a tight smile, his eyes narrowing. "You're naive, Jamal. People are afraid. They don't want to examine their past, they want comfort. You will fail, and when you do, I'll be here to remind you of it." Jamal blinked, absorbing those words as a challenge rather than a defeat. He realized that Marcus was revealing more than he intended. People's fears weren't impenetrable barriers, they were merely the first step toward confrontation. How could he use this fear to inspire awareness rather than retreat? He passed a glance toward Chloe, who was watching with an intensity that anchored him. Inspired, he leaned forward, letting his voice soften slightly but holding a firm conviction. "That's the thing, Marcus," he said carefully. "These fears exist because we refuse to confront our history. But what if that confrontation is precisely what we need to break free from our discomfort? It's on all of us to redefine what comfort looks like. We can either stay comfortable in ignorance or rise together to seek the truth." Jamal could hear a few gasps from the audience and watched as expressions began changing. For the first time, he saw heads nodding, not everyone, but enough to sense a shift. Was he igniting a flicker of collective recognition? The moment hung awkwardly, and Marcus cast a hurried glance towards the exit, weighing his options. Jamal felt an ache of urgency growing within him. He had dared to challenge Marcus, but how could he ensure this confrontation didn't end there? As Marcus stepped back with a dismissive wave, muttering about losing one's battle to naive idealism, Jamal knew the real struggle had just begun. He had revealed a side of himself that questioned, confronted, and ultimately dared to hope. Yet doubts lingered. Was he truly ready to lead the charge toward truth, or was this only the beginning of a much more grueling battle, fueled by a newfound fire? Jamal knew he had to gather allies, to strategize and reinforce their cause. He desperately needed to translate this momentum into something actionable. What allies could support him? Who within the community was willing to engage in open dialogue? Before he could contemplate further, a shadow loomed at his side. It was Chloe, her brow creased with concern. "What's next, Jamal?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He was hit with the realization that the storm wasn't just in the crowd's reaction but in his own mind, a torrent of potential paths unfurling before him, each with consequences he had to fully grasp. Jamal's heart quickened again. The next decision was crucial. How would he navigate this labyrinth of conflict he had stepped into? Jamal stood rooted to the spot, grappling with the electrifying mixture of doubt and determination. What next steps did he need to carve out of this moment? The challenge thrown at him wasn't merely a conflict with Marcus, it was a confrontation with himself and the role he had chosen to play in a story that spanned beyond his own ambitions. Chloe's eyes, wide and earnest, anchored him amid the chaos. Her presence acted like a lighthouse cutting through the fog of uncertainty. "Jamal," she pressed, "we have to make a plan. This is bigger than just today. You sparked something in that room, but if it dissipates without direction." Her voice trailed off, leaving the implication heavy in the air. He could feel the weight of her concern, and with it, he sensed his responsibility burgeoning. A throaty realization washed over him: the bravery he had summoned to confront Marcus couldn't be the end of this. It had to be the start. It was time to evolve from an instigator of conversation to a leader of meaningful change. What if we started organizing smaller discussions? Jamal suggested, his mind racing through the potential pathways ahead. Places where people feel safe to explore their fears and thoughts. A space where uncomfortable truths can be engaged with intimacy. Chloe smiled, her expression transforming from concern to hope. "I like that. But you'll need to keep that fire lit, Jamal. You can't let this slip into idle talk. This has to become action. She tilted her head, urging him to explore deeper. What do you hope for this dialogue to accomplish? Jamal took a slow breath, considering the question. It wasn't enough to merely uncover truths, he had to challenge beliefs, dismantle defenses, and build new narratives in their place. I wanted to empower people to voice their fears, then give them the tools to reframe those fears into something constructive. If we engage with the past, we can rewrite the future. Vision sparked in his mind. If they could turn internal conflict into external resolution, this might become a catalyst for something significant. It would need clarity, structure, and above all, unwavering commitment. But I can't do this alone, he added, his voice regaining steadiness. I need you, and I need others who understand the stakes. Chloe nodded. We can reach out to people who've been touched by Marcus's actions, those willing to stand up and discuss the risks involved. She paused, her eyes narrowing as if recalling individuals who could bolster their efforts. There's Mia from the art collective, always ready to amplify voices. And what about Ethan? He has connections that could lend credibility to our discussions. With each suggestion, Jamal felt the contour of his aspirations becoming clearer. They weren't merely addressing an ideological schism, they were setting the stage for self-examination, bringing to light underlying fears that drove behavior, fears Marcus seemingly thrived upon. A terrifying thought crossed his mind. What if Marcus heard about their efforts? The prospect chilled him. He could see Marcus standing at the edge of a room, watching as their movement grew. The stakes were high, and with power dynamics at play, becoming a target was an inevitable risk. But would that stop him? The very thought ignited the ember of defiance within him. Chloe, let us start compiling a list of potential allies, he decided, his mind racing now with strategies for outreach. We can plan a series of informal gatherings, focus on building trust before diving into discussions. This isn't just about us confronting truths, it's about facilitating a collective understanding that every voice matters. Jamal felt a pulse of excitement at the way things were coming together. They would map out the fears that long held them hostage and build from there. But beneath that excitement lay a sliver of self-doubt, the lingering question of whether he could truly guide others through this treacherous terrain. As they began to outline their first meeting, Jamal's thoughts drifted back to Marcus. Would he continue to linger, like a specter, haunting their endeavors? And as that question hung in his mind, the undercurrents of tension shifted again. Something monumental loomed on the horizon, and Jamal felt it. An imminent convergence of confrontation and clarity awaited. The time had come for him to stand firm, not merely as a participant, but as a catalyst for profound change. With resolve coursing through him, Jamal met Chloe's gaze, the energy between them a silent agreement. They would gather their allies. They would challenge the past. But would they be prepared for what Marcus might unleash? Jamal woke early the next morning, the remnants of last night's discussion echoing in his mind. The sun streamed through the window, painting patterns on the floor, but he remained unfocused, swirling in a tempest of thoughts. Each idea felt heavy, marked by his ambition but also by a gnawing uncertainty. Could he really facilitate change? As he brewed his coffee, Jamal paced the kitchen, the familiar rhythm soothing yet charged with anticipation. The more he envisioned their discussions taking shape, the more daunting the actual execution seemed. He took a moment to breathe deeply, refusing to let anxiety dictate his next steps. The changing tides of his life demanded courage, self-doubt couldn't rule him anymore. He resolved to find clarity in action. While sipping his coffee, Jamal opened his laptop, determined to draft an outline for his proposal. He envisioned a structure that would foster safe dialogue, and his fingers began flying over the keys. Each section he drafted felt like laying the first stones of a bridge that connected uncertainty with hope. After a few hours, he had a rough draft titled, Engaging Dialogue, Voices at the Table. It emphasized the importance of creating a brave space where vulnerability wasn't just encouraged but celebrated. As he viewed his creation, satisfaction adjoined the budding fear swirling within him. The essence of his proposal wouldn't merely stem from his words, it would depend on his ability to lead. Could he truly become the connector he envisioned? Doubt crept back. What if he stumbled, or worse, if his words failed to resonate? The image of Marcus loomed, embodying a relentless naysayer poised to strike when weakness showed. Jamal shook his head, chastising himself for allowing that fear to seep in. No. This time would be different. He was no longer a passive dreamer, he was ready to become a proactive leader. Chloe's words echoed in his mind. Action. The fire had to be tended. He decided to call Mia that afternoon, her enthusiasm and creativity sure to amplify their cause. As he dialed her number, the residual apprehension gave way to the thrill of potential partnership. Mia. It's Jamal. We need your energy for something meaningful, he began, outlining his vision. He could feel her excitement even through the phone, her ability to channel creative energy into the conversation invigorating him. Absolutely. This sounds amazing. She exclaimed. We could incorporate art, use visual expressions to dive into our fears. It'll resonate powerfully, trust me. Her confidence bolstered his own. Jamal began to see how they could paint the dialogues with strokes of creativity, making concepts tangible. Each small assemblage of voices could culminate in an immersive experience, where discussion turned into art. Later, Jamal met with Ethan, whose connections were a breath of fresh air. You want to facilitate discussions? Sounds noble, he remarked, casually leaning back in his chair. But you have to prepare for pushback. Not everyone's going to welcome this. Jamal felt the weight of those words. Any leadership role came with a load of responsibility, from the enthusiastic supporters to the cynics who would challenge him. His resolve solidified, he couldn't lead from a place of avoidance anymore. He would need strategies, plans for navigating potential opposition, and steps to keep pushing forward even when disheartened. As days became weeks, Jamal continued to refine his idea. He scouted different venues and began drafting more formal invitations, collecting the narratives he hoped to unveil. Each new conversation ignited a deeper confidence within him, illuminating hidden strengths he hadn't yet acknowledged. Yet, shadows of doubt were never far away, flickering just beyond his periphery. One evening, standing before a mirror, he confronted those shadows. I am capable of this, he murmured. I will not shrink back. His voice echoed back at him, solidifying his conviction. But the moment felt volatile. What if this was the calm before the storm? The clock ticked on, and soon enough, he would have to face Marcus directly. Was he truly ready for whatever confrontation might arise? With that looming question, an unsettling tension formed in his gut. The ground was shifting beneath him, and just beyond the horizon was a reckoning, a clash that would test not just his vision but his very essence. Would he crumble or rise? Jamal stared at the mirror, the reflection of his own determination sparking a paradoxical flame within him. The tribulations that lay ahead were no longer abstract, they had names, faces, and swirling doubts that resembled his own. Yet, he realized he was on the precipice of something larger than himself. His days were now filled with meticulous planning. With Mia and Ethan's support, Jamal's vision began taking form, but he felt it lacked a personal touch, a narrative that tied everything together. This realization propelled him to seek deeper connections, not just superficial engagements with those involved. He started reaching out, having intimate conversations with various individuals who might be part of the dialogue. Each voice added richness to a tapestry he was trying to weave, one where stories of fear, resilience, and triumph could intertwine. One afternoon, Jamal met Erica, a local artist with a powerful story of overcoming adversity through art. When they sat together, he sensed an unmistakable energy. The way Erica spoke of her struggles, turning them into visual masterpieces, ignited a fervor within him. They talked for hours. As Jamal listened, he felt the words weaving a narrative in his mind, the potential of their collaboration forming a vivid image. Erica's approach to tackling fears through her art mirrored his own desires to confront obstacles through dialogue. What if we create pieces that represent people's experiences? Jamal proposed, excitement flooding his voice. Art can be the entry point for discussions, it could evoke emotions too raw for words at first. Erica's eyes lit up as she absorbed his suggestion. Absolutely. We can have installations that allow people to interact physically and emotionally, encouraging that brave space you mentioned. It draws them in. Their synergy sparked a fresh resolve in Jamal. Ideas flowed as they mapped out their collaborative venture. But beneath his enthusiasm stood an awareness of the malfunctioning gears in his heart. The more traction he gained, the more intense the apprehension about Marcus became. What would the pushback look like when it arrived? How could he frame it in terms of strength rather than fear? As days turned to nights, Jamal's list of confirmed participants grew, but each confirmation felt accompanied by a weight. Would these individuals really embrace vulnerability, or would some recoil in shock? Would Marcus, in particular, serve as an obstacle to the emotional depth they hoped to achieve? The night before his first meeting, Jamal fought to stifle anxiety. He needed to be ready, not just with a plan, but mentally and emotionally poised against any forthcoming confrontation. Practice became a refuge. He rehearsed each possible response, emphasized his commitment to the truth, and envisioned framing every challenge as an opportunity. Then the moment arrived. The room was vibrant, filled with colorful artwork and engaged participants. Jamal led with a nervous but steady voice, introducing the concept without flinching. As the dialogue blossomed, he saw individuals come alive, their stories spilling forth through laughter, tears, and artistic expression, but through it all, Jamal's eyes wandered to the door. Would Marcus show? The event reached a crescendo, and just when Jamal thought they had forged a safe space, the air changed. Marcus entered, the embodiment of steel-cold skepticism. A hush fell over the crowd as the unmistakable tension brewed. Jamal's heart raced. It was time to confront the specter of doubt head-on. Could he hold his ground amidst this sudden darkness? As Marcus stepped further inside, a palpable ripple surged through the gathering, igniting a question that raced through Jamal's mind. Would this clash ultimately define him, or would he emerge transformed, leading not just through dialogue but through the very act of standing firm in his convictions? In that critical moment, clarity crystallized. This was not merely an event, it was a reckoning, and how he navigated it would shape not only his vision but also the man he could be. Jamal's gaze remained fixed on Marcus as he walked further into the room, the tension intensifying with every step. This wasn't just another face lost in a crowd. Marcus was the embodiment of doubt, the voice that could ripple through his plans like a pebble cast into still water. Would he disrupt the delicate balance of trust Jamal had worked so hard to create? Jamal, Marcus began, his tone sharp, eliciting an almost instinctive flinch from the audience. What you're trying to do here, it's naive. You think storytelling will change the world? We've got realities to face, and they require real solutions. Jamal's heart pounded in his chest. He felt the heat of Marcus's skepticism radiate, yet the test fueled an unfamiliar resolve. Each word Marcus threw was harsh, like a challenge he hadn't anticipated, but instead of recoiling, Jamal centered himself. He remembered Erica's words, how art could bridge the divide, expressing truths that were hard to voice. Here was his chance to illustrate that very point. Marcus, he replied, his voice calmer than he felt. Understanding our realities rather than ignoring them is the first step to making real change. This dialogue is just that, a dialogue. It's part of a process, and every story shared strengthens our community. Several faces in the room reflected his sentiments, nodding subtly in support. That small shift buoyed Jamal, crafted a fragile armor around his doubts. The pushback from Marcus was essential, a necessary opposition that could either strengthen or unravel him, but which path he chose to find the narrative he wanted to forge. Talk is cheap, Marcus countered, crossing his arms defiantly. What will you do when the talk is over? What actions will lead those stories to something tangible? With every challenge, Jamal felt the stakes raising, a subtle urge to retreat creeping in. Doubt wrapped around him like a vice, squeezing out the hopes he had nurtured. Was his mission doomed before it even began? Yet, amidst the frustration, a flicker of clarity ignited. This was not about providing solutions to every problem but rather creating a space where everything felt possible. Maybe it's not just about solutions, Jamal said, grounding his stance. Each story here has the potential to impact others. What if we can inspire action through connection instead of merely dictating it? Can't we start a movement from that space of understanding? The room quivered with both apprehension and intrigue. He could almost hear the internal deliberations of his audience. Marcus's brow furrowed, considering, but there was still a disconnect, an emotional fracture that made Jamal realize he needed a different angle, something more personal. Just the other day, a girl I encountered was lost, unsure of herself and her place in this world. Jamal continued, drawing from a visceral memory. I reached out to her, and in that moment, I wasn't offering a solution, but rather a connection. In sharing our vulnerabilities, I helped her see that her experience mattered. Jamal's voice grew firm as the room's energy shifted, a ripple of recognition danced among the participants. It was almost tangible, the connection weaving its way across the expanse between them. This was his core, building strength from shared experiences, the very essence of his mission. While I can't solve every problem, he concluded, I can create a narrative space where we redefine them together. The silence that followed hung heavy, but it was different this time. A blend of contemplation and fire, as if Marcus's presence had lit a spark in their collective thoughts. Then came the unexpected. Marcus, visibly shaken, allowed a moment of vulnerability to shimmer beneath his steely surface. You might have something there, Jamal, he mumbled, uncertainty fracturing his usual disdain. But was this the breakthrough he coveted, or merely a flicker of acknowledgement? As hope mingled with trepidation, Jamal felt the weight of his journey pressing forward. He was emerging, reshaping his narrative, one story at a time. Yet an unsettling sensation tugged at him. Was Marcus more than just an antagonist? Was there depth beneath the skepticism, something that could flip the narrative into a powerful ally? The revelation lingered as the dialogue resumed, igniting Jamal's curiosity again. But would that revelation steer him closer to his goal, or would it unravel into another complex layer of conflict? As he engaged with the shifting dynamics, one truth loomed above the rest: the true test was only just beginning. Jamal stood at the center of the room, a faint tremor resonating in his hands as he absorbed the shift in the atmosphere. Marcus's unexpected concession, however slight, sent ripples of uncertainty through him. Could it be that this confrontation was paving the way for clarity? He scrutinized Marcus, searching for signs of genuine change beneath the familiar veneer of cynicism. The dialogue resumed around him, yet his thoughts drifted. He could still feel the weight of the girl's uncertainty from days past, the precarious balance between vulnerability and strength. In reaching out to her, Jamal realized he had ignited something in himself, a newfound determination to embrace empathy as a catalyst for transformation. He was not merely a messenger, he could mold narratives, reshape perceptions, and foster connections. Was this the journey he was meant to undertake? Flashes of inspiration cut through his uncertainty. What if he gathered stories that transcended individual experiences, creating a repository of narratives where people could find solace and strength? Everyone has a voice, he thought, and for the first time, the concept did not feel like a distant ideal but a tangible goal. He began sketching outlines in his mind for a project that would immerse others in shared storytelling, a deliberate choice to cultivate connection rather than push for immediate results. Jamal. Erica's voice pulled him from his reverie. She approached him, her expressions oscillating between concern and encouragement. You were great in there. Do you feel it? The shift? Yeah, he said slowly, the certainty in his voice battling with the remnants of doubt. But there's so much more to do. I want to create a platform where stories can breathe, evolve, and inspire. It can't stop with this dialogue. Erica's eyebrows shot up in surprise, followed by an enthusiastic nod. That's ambitious, Jamal. You know I'll back you up, right? We can brainstorm together. As they moved aside, an unexpected thought of Marcus crept back into his consciousness. He had seen his skepticism shatter, though a part of Jamal hesitated. Did Marcus genuinely want to engage with this journey, or was he merely intrigued by the prospect? What kind of story does he have? Jamal pondered. Perhaps he should integrate Marcus into this project, allowing dialogue not only among allies but even with challengers. If they were to uncover deeper truths, Marcus could become an unexpected ally, healing the fractures of their interactions. With this revelation sparking in his mind, Jamal approached Marcus. "Hey, can we talk?" he asked with a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. The air buzzed with tension as he felt the gaze of others settle upon them. Every step toward Marcus felt monumental as he navigated the uncertainty of not only their relationship but also the potential for reconciliation. "Look," Jamal began, firm yet gentle. "I appreciate what you shared earlier. You have a perspective that could enrich this project. Would you be interested in collaborating?" The silence that fell between them felt weighty. Jamal's heart raced as he awaited Marcus's response. Would he retreat to his usual skepticism, or could this be a leap toward understanding? Marcus's expression shifted slightly. A moment of internal struggle played out before Jamal's very eyes. "You really think my voice matters in this?" "Yes," Jamal affirmed, almost sharply. "Your perspective matters. Everyone's story has the potential to impact change." As dread and anticipation mingled, Jamal realized this was more than just engaging Marcus. Every thread in his narrative was at stake. Exposing his vulnerability required courage, but he was ready to face the backlash if it meant creating something profound out of their shared experiences. Suddenly, the purpose of his mission crystallized. It was about forging connections, but also testing the boundaries of his own courage to step into the uncertainty of collaboration. As Marcus pondered his response, an unsettling question loomed in Jamal's mind: was this leap into the unknown revealing the path to growth, or was it inviting chaos into a moment that felt so carefully navigated? The answer remained elusive, a truth waiting to be unveiled as the dialogue held its breath. In that charged moment, the fortifying framework of his endeavor came alive. But diving into this collaboration could ricochet into unforeseen turmoil. Now, the question lingered: was he prepared to confront the realities that could unravel or redefine his burgeoning vision for connection? Jamal stood at the precipice of a pivotal moment, the air thick with anticipation as he awaited Marcus's response. The stakes were higher than ever. If he could get through to him, they might stand a chance to create a real conversation about their community's past and future. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Marcus's face, but Jamal refused to flinch. He had come too far to back down now. After what felt like an eternity, Marcus finally spoke. "You honestly believe there's value in what I bring to this? People think I'm just a businessman concerned with profits." The hesitance in Marcus's voice revealed a crack in his armor, a glimpse of vulnerability that Jamal seized upon. "Yes, I do. Your experiences and perspectives could provide the necessary counterpoints we need to ensure this dialogue is truly rich and multidimensional. Working together might even bridge some of the gaps between us and build trust within our community," Jamal responded, gesturing to the faces in the crowd that had gathered around them, eyes glimmering with interest, forcing open a dialogue that embedded understanding and healing in its core. Jamal could feel the tide shifting. Marcus shifted slightly, torn between skepticism and curiosity. "Okay," he said slowly, but the hesitation remained. "Let us see where this goes. But I'm not making any promises." Jamal's heart raced with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "That's all I ask. Let us meet regularly, talk through our differing perspectives. Together we can challenge the community to confront the past and look toward a shared future." As the crowd gradually dispersed, Jamal was overcome with a sense of accomplishment. This wasn't just a victory in convincing Marcus to join, nor was it about securing a single ally. It was about creating a constructive platform for conversation and personal growth. Each step that followed mattered. In the weeks that followed, Jamal channeled his energy into weekly meetings, gathering participants from all walks of life to share stories and insights. Art installations flourished throughout their discussion spaces, vibrant reflections capturing individual narratives alongside collective experiences. He meticulously crafted the project he had envisioned, watching as ideas transformed into tangible reality. Every meeting became a gathering of voices that echoed renewed energy. Marcus, surprisingly, proved to be a solid contributor, offering a perspective that challenged Jamal and the participants to wrestle with complexities they had previously overlooked. Instead of questioning motives, they were navigating together through discomfort, which only amplified their collective strength. Through these dialogues, Jamal discovered more about himself as well. He learned to manage conflict, embrace vulnerability, and offer spaces where others could flourish, all while anchoring himself firmly against the skepticism that had shadowed him in the past. It was profound, the way he had transformed from a boy burdened by others' perceptions into a leader carving his path with authenticity. Moments of connection reflected his journey of personal growth. He never imagined the weight of his uncertainty, once paralyzing, would evolve into the bravery that inspired others. His peers, once judgmental, now rallied behind him, voicing their stories and even gratitude for fostering an environment that felt safe and accepting. Recognition came, not through accolades but through the ripple effects of their initiative that began to take root within the community. Collaborators emerged with offers of support, schools expressed interest in their program, and many a heartfelt thank you made its way through conversations. What began as an inquiry into a local truth morphed into a community movement of curiosity, learning, and introspection. The changes they instigated were profound and far-reaching. And the distance he traveled reflected not just individual but collective evolution, a metamorphosis grounded in resilience and connection. As Jamal prepared for a final presentation to share their findings publicly, he felt the culmination of so much growth, the clarity of purpose, the richness of stories, and, ultimately, his own identity as a facilitator of dialogue. He was ready to demonstrate their collective achievements, not as a silent rebel but as a convincing advocate, prepared to confront anyone who tried to silence their voices. Stepping up to the podium at the community event, he felt every eye upon him. He smiled, breathing in the energy. What we've created is not just an exploration of history, it is an invitation to forge a shared future. We've transitioned from fear to solidarity, proving that every voice matters. Jamal knew that the battle for acknowledgement, understanding, and respect had only just begun, but his heart now brimmed with unshakable confidence. He had proven to himself and to his community that genuine connection and courageous dialogue could indeed conquer darkness and fear, and in that moment, as he soaked in the applause, he understood the transformation was complete. He had achieved not just recognition from his peers but a sense of belonging and competence that would carry him forward. The weight of past judgments had lost its grip, he had stepped into the light, emboldened and invincible. This was his true achievement, a life forever changed by the choices he made, a legacy crafted by courage. His journey was testament to the fact that every story mattered, including his own. Now it was time for all of you to step up and take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation just like Jamal's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread these powerful journeys of overcoming adversity. Comment below with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about the endings and what you personally take away from Jamal's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this story. Show your support for individuals seeking growth.